Okay, so real quick, I know a couple of you guys already messaged me, so I figured let me just do a quick video, answer all the questions in one. So this morning, we had our New York pre-market Zoom. I'm going to quickly do an extract from it and allow that extract to kind of just break down our thought process going to pre-market equities. So real quick, just for those of you guys who are on the Zoom, use it as a refresher so you know where we were talking about and why we were talking about it. And I'll be back in 5 or 6 seconds after it's done. So it's a couple-minute video, just recap on it, and then we'll get back into it. Start with U30. And the one thing I'm looking at, so I'm only looking shorts. All right. I'm not trying to buy it from up here. We are starting to get, let's see. We are starting to get into what's maintaining our order flow. So there we go. Yesterday's New York price action, we just sold off. We did come into Monday, right? We swept out some liquidity and broke the low. So this is where I'm kind of paying my attention to. I do like the distro that we have at the top. I also like the redistribution that we saw during London, right? So we get above, we get somewhere in here and start to see price action. So this morning at the open, if I start to see distribution coming in, I'm going to be looking for shorts, right? Any kind of distribution here allows me to start shorting the crap out of indices. All right. My first target is going to see if I at least can get down to Asian lows. Keep in mind what the price range is, right? So depending on wherever we come, right? If we do come in here, all right, we're talking about 187 points. So for me, I'm looking for something in the neighborhood of sub, 34 point stop loss to get a 1 to 5, right? If it's under 20 points, I'm going to be close to my 1 to 10 on that move. So I am looking for us to come back into Monday's price action here, ultimately give me price action to short out of. I am not going to have a limit order on this. So I am looking at U30 here. On SPX, she is in the area where I wanted to see, and we've got the same price action, right? We have ultimately what's maintaining the current lowest form of order flow, right? We have the redistro. We are trading into the area that I want us to come into, obviously mitigating this move here, coming back into the redistro out of London, right? This is not the line in the sand for me, right? We just have some confluence, right? The 80% of this move is also the 80% of the micro that happened during London. So I'm just kind of waiting to see, do we get a distribution today? If we start building a distribution, I'm again going to be taking shorts, and I'm only looking for shorts. I'm not trying to do anything else with it. And then again, trying to get it below Asian liquidity. That's probably where we're going to end up. And again, that's a 22-point move. So anything below like a 3-point stop is going to give me, over that 1 to 5 that I want to do. So I am looking for shorts if we get it. If we don't get it, all right, it is what it is. I'll just sit there and watch this and go higher. And then the other one that I'm going to be looking at is going to be NASDAQ. So NASDAQ, same thing, right? We've got the same exact price action. We are looking, and there's our BOS on EG. So I'm going to move that down. I'm also going to, there we go. I am looking to see what we can do in here, right? Again, we could sweep out this. This was just for me looking to see what kind of price action we're getting, but this is a really clean type 1 that happens in here. If we start to build a distribution, right, like this, I am going to put this limit order in with half risk to see if it can trigger on my UTAD. And then obviously when we break, I'll throw more risk in to do something like this. So as we get closer to the open, I do have this already set, and all it is just measure out the UTAD in this micro. I'm taking it off the 50 just because the 50 of this micro lines up with the 80 of the overall move that swept out and came down. So I am looking for these shorts on indices today. If they don't give me the short, I'm not going to force it. And also just keep in mind, you're not going to get a tremendous amount of price action probably, I would say, after like 10:30, 11. So like an hour to an hour and a half after market open. If we're not building something, I'm going to be done looking, just because I know traditionally we're going to start to immensely slow down. All right. Um, so that's my game plan with indices. Who's got some questions? Who's got something else they're looking at? Okay, so now that you have the recap, let's break down the trade that I took. First and foremost, we have US 30, right? We were talking about it from just a slightly higher time frame here. We are still just kind of in the middle of nowhere, right? We hadn't broken any order flow yet. We were just dancing in the middle. Yes, we kind of confirmed this break here based off of this area of supply distribution, right? So it really wasn't giving me a lot of confidence, but if we would have given a distribution here, I definitely would have looked for something into it, right? We always know that there's going to be a leader and a laggard. We also know that, of late, SPX and NASDAQ have been moving very similar, especially because of the tech stocks involved in it. So when we come down to pre-market, there really wasn't a lot of evidence of sellers here, right? Sure, we did break. For me, this was kind of just like the manipulation to sweep out some liquidity and take this just a little bit higher. Nothing about this chart really gives me anything that I want to do with it. All right. Let's go over to NASDAQ now, right? NASDAQ, we talked about, hold on one second. Come on. There we go. So NASDAQ, we talked about where we were. The thing I liked most was from this perspective here, right? We saw that price had distributed. Ultimately, this confirmation of a redistribution, and we know that we're in this leg, and then we know that we're in that leg, right? This is the lowest form of order flow sitting right here. So this essentially is my SC, or the cause of the overall redistribution. In the video that we recapped, I did not have, I did not have just a blanket limit order off of this micro that was ultimately confirmed during London. Right. This was a pretty clean distribution. It confirmed overall the redistribution. I liked how we swept out Asian. I liked how we gave a type 1. Right. I also like the confluence that 50% of our UTAD was also 80% of the entire shakeout. Right. So ultimately, the shakeout that happened during New York session is, there we go. This shakeout right here swept out liquidity, right? Swept out. And that ultimately is what's maintaining and holding the lowest form of order flow. So I liked how when you measured this right here, the 80%, that red dot, the 80% lined up nicely with the 50 of the UTAD. Again, when you heard the video, I had said that if we were distributing pre-market, that I would have a limit order as my UTAD entry. And then on the break, I'd take another entry to do this. That wasn't the case. We didn't get that. When you look at, there we go. So when you look at it, initially the very first point of interest was this 80% line, and there wasn't anything for me to really throw a limit order on. Now, once we confirmed the distribution, right? Once we confirmed our overall distribution. So this is essentially what we've got. We've got our ICE being built, no sign of weakness until we ultimately give our major sign of weakness here, right? So this being my UTAD, I did not throw a sell stop in there. I would have if I would have had time, right? The problem is I'm not taking an entry 15 minutes before pre-market. So I did not take the entry here pre-market. What I ended up doing is just waiting for market open. So once we get market open, which is the start of the blue, right? We don't get any kind of movement to the backside. Now, I did have this limit set at pre-market. Initially, what I was going to throw at this was just $50 off of the 50% of the UTAD, which is also 80% of the overall move here. I was going to throw $50 at it off that limit order. Now, once we confirm the larger distribution, and what I mean by that is once we confirmed this distribution here, right? Plenty of drives, 1, 2, 3, 4 drives, that being my UTAD. And then we get the major sign of weakness here. What I did was I upped it to $100. So I threw $100 on my 100K account. And again, I did not throw it off the 80, right? You can see we come right into the 80. I ended up throwing it off the 50% of that UTAD. Ultimately, just because of the confluence we had in it, right? I didn't want to miss this because of a couple of points. So on a 100K account, again, I threw $100 risk at this. My very first area to take partials was going to be right here. It was a 1 to 27, where I ended up securing 3 out of the 4 orders. So at $100 risk, I secured $75 worth of volume, which at that point was just a little slightly higher than $2,100. So about 2.1% is what I secured. And then I just maintained the last $25 of volume. And my overall target, like I had said, was going to be Asian lows. And once we cleared those out, I just secured it for the day. So this gave me about another $1,100, and it was actually $1,102. So add that all together, I was sitting around $3,200 or close to 3.2%. So I was pretty happy with it. And I'm out of the trade. I'm done. So you can see there was $25 left of volume in this really clean trade. If this micro here doesn't happen, I'll tell you right now, I probably don't take the trade just because it was only going to give me a 1 to 5.6, which meets my criteria for indices. I didn't really feel that we were going to get this movement this early, right? I kind of thought that this would take its time coming down here, and I really didn't want to be in this trade. So you could have, right? You could have, taking it off the overall UTAD, maybe off the 80% to take it down. For me, it wasn't worth it simply because I had the limit set on NASDAQ. I was also interested in SPX. So, I caught the 3.2% on NASDAQ, and then over on SPX, I caught the distro as well. And this is why I didn't play the larger distro, what was happening, right? So same thing, right? We had ideal price action. We had our shakeout that confirmed, broke the low. This was the micro during London that I was looking to play out of on NASDAQ. Again, the 80% of that lined up pretty nicely with 80% of the whole move. Once we came down into lower time frame, we had the same price action as NASDAQ, right? We had the distribution, right? We had our distribution. We did confirm it. And then as price came back up into the 80% of our UTAD, this is where I ended up playing the micro schematic. And this is why I didn't take any trades on NASDAQ in the same price action. So you could see the distribution that we had here. Again, really clean. We had our 1 drive, 2 drive, 3 drive, our UTAD. On the break of the UTAD, this is where I set it off the 50. Same thing. I could have played a sell stop. The sell stop did give me a 1 to 5 to Asian lows. Any other day of the week, I have a sell stop set. I personally just didn't want to be in a trade and be forced to hold it longer than I wanted, right? I had every intention to be closed out by 12 o'clock Eastern time in preparation for FOMC, right? So I ended up taking this trade here. I put everything off of the 50% of our UTAD. And again, you can see that to Asian lows, it would have given me a 1 to 8. And that's where I kind of wanted to play into, right? All I've done so far is just paid myself my risk. Once we broke this low right here, it was sitting at a 1 to 2. All I did was just reduce the risk, right? So I've reduced my risk. And once we broke it, all I did was just pay myself my risk. Okay. So, on this case here, I threw $100 at this as well. And I had something with spread. I had something like $18. I think it was like 73 cents at risk. So I just paid myself the $18.73. That way, if this thing ends up coming up and taking me out, it is a big old fat break even. And of course, I've got all TPs set to close out at Asian lows, which would give me on $100 risk. On $100 risk, it'd give me just over 0.75%, or in this case, $816 in profit. So, but overall, NASDAQ was the better play for me. I only took the one trade on NASDAQ. Again, you could have played the distro, but I was watching SPX because I knew I was already secure, break even on NASDAQ. So hopefully that gives you an understanding of how I played it. And then, ultimately why I decided to play SPX as well. I just like the signs of sellers coming into this. It looked pretty clean. But again, I haven't really taken any profits on SPX. It's one of those, it'll be a nice little chunk of change if it does take profit. If it doesn't, whatever, I've got NASDAQ. That was a pretty good push for me today. So, hopefully this gives you an understanding, a breakdown of how we played it. And kudos to those of you guys that did catch it. I know a couple of guys hit it in the chat. So congrats. And yeah, sounds good. You guys have a good one.